You could say whatever you want. You got to pick whatever your favorite swear word is. I guess we're rolling right now. It's our weekly visit with the great Mike Garafolo from NFL Network, proudly brought to you by our good friends at Hartley and Hartley Insurance, family-owned and second-generation independent insurance agency that's been serving the Puget Sound area since 1978. They promised honesty, fairness, integrity. Contact Jamie Hartley when he's not golfing. 253-565-8700. Also, Zogs on Fox Island, great place to grab a cold beer, watch the game, hang out with friends. New spring and summertime hours at Zogs, Monday through Thursday, 3 to 10, Friday through Saturday, 12 to 10, and Sunday, 12 to 9. Visit Zogs on Fox Island on Facebook for more information, also on Instagram. Hey, Garafolo, tell our viewers and listeners where you're headed to right now.
I am outside Sea Isle City, New Jersey, one of the shore towns I used to go to when I was I was going to say I was a youngin', but actually by the time we went to Sea Isle, I was probably a teenager into college years before I moved up to the North Jersey shore, where I now spend my time. So this is South Jersey. This is Philly shore, where I am now. And that transitions into what I am here for. Yeah, today's Jason Kelce's annual Catch 62 event, and I said that correctly. So I had the other day I was talking about it on NFL Network, and I said Catch 22. And anytime you make a mistake, you can't tweet the clip out now, right? Because you can't go back and fix it. So I was like, so I watched the clip back. I was like, and I told his marketing person, who I know very well, Emily, she's amazing. And I was like, I had a great clip for you. I was going to tweet it out for you, but I said Catch 22, and I screwed up. But I sent her the clip. I was like, here's what it would have looked like. So it's Catch 62 event to benefit the Eagles Autism Foundation. Even though he doesn't play for the Eagles anymore, he's still continuing the event. It is at the Ocean Drive in Sea Isle, which is I don't want to say it's a dive bar. It's a beach bar. But Jason started playing for the Eagles, fell in love with Sea Isle, bought a house there, went to the Ocean Drive a bunch, and then decided a couple of years ago to start an event there to benefit the Autism Foundation. So I'm a part of it today, and I will be guest bartending. I am hopeful, and I expect that this is a shot and a beer crowd, and not a cosmopolitan or what's the other one? Espresso martini.
Yeah, I hope. I'm begging someone goes up there and orders just the hardest goddamn drink for you possible. I want to see you out there muddling a drink.
Hell no,
a mojito. Man. I want a mojito. That's what I want.
No, it's just popping the top off. Which actually the beers that they're ordering are probably twist tops. So probably twist top and just pour the shot with the thing that shuts off after 1 ounce of Jameson. That's all I expect to do today.
No, it's someone's going to mess with you. Someone's going to mess with you. You know it.
It reminds me, years ago, we went to a real legitimate dive bar in Philly, and my buddy and his friends, they had just watched Big Lebowski. So they were all like, yeah, can we get a White Russian?
Right? I love a White Russian.
Yeah, but the guy looks at him and goes, if you know how to make it, come back. He tried to make it behind the bar. He had no idea. They all thought they were cool.
You can only have, the problem with the White Russian is you can only have really one of them. That's about it. You get
because of the cream.
More than one. It's just too much. And I wouldn't suggest a White Russian, at a beach bar when it's probably high 80s there, 90s.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah. Hopefully the beer's going to be cold. I'll put it to you that way.
So I would take it you've never bartended before in your life.
I actually am a good I say that, but I'm a good bartender at home. But I've got a rotation of drinks that I know how to make. If you step outside of that, we got problems. I can make you a Manhattan.
What's your rotation?
A Manhattan, a martini, an old fashioned, a whiskey sour. I like a Gibson. To me, that's but it's just, you guys got to know what the ratios are. Now, the whiskey sour.
Is that with gin? What's a Gibson?
The Gibson is so it's basically a gin martini, but when you put the onions in there, it becomes a Gibson, right? Instead of olives or a twist. So it's gin, vermouth, and the little cocktail onions, which I think go incredibly well with the gin. That's why I like. But if you go out and you say, And every now and then I'll say, can I have a gin martini with olives? And the guy will go, oh, it's a Gibson. Hey, all right, give him a high five. But if I say Gibson, they're like, I don't understand. What's that? Because nobody orders them anymore.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I mean, when you describe it, I know what it is, but I didn't know that was the name of it. Lots of cocktails. You'll be able to make something if someone comes up to you and wants a whiskey sour or an old fashioned.
Well, the whiskey sour, like, I'm going to be asking for egg whites. I mean, they don't have egg whites there, right? Like, there's just no.
They may.
And you gotta, don't forget, you gotta dry shake the whiskey sour. Otherwise, the ice is going to kill the froth that you're trying to get with the egg white, which really adds no flavor. So basically, you're putting egg white in there for no reason other than you're trying to be a half a Rocky Balboa.
So this is just a charity event at a dive bar to raise money for autism. That's a great way. A beach bar. This is a great way to spend your afternoon. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. My brother's coming with me. My daughter. So they have a portion that's open to kids, which is happening right now. At the park. So I'm going to take both of my daughters. My brother's taking his kids. My parents are coming. My dad's thrilled that he's going into Sea Isle where there is very little parking. So, like, that's on his mind right now. You got to, like, when my dad comes to visit in Hoboken, you got to pay for the parking every day. Yeah. That's what's on his mind is the parking the whole time.
God,
so, like, we're going to Sea Isle. Yeah.
That's such an old person thing to be concerned about.
Oh, no. It's got nothing to do with his age. He's been that way since he's been like 30. So that's just him.
Okay, then I stand corrected. I think I would be concerned about that then too. So just...
my brother, my father raised us in a way where it was like, my brother got a parking ticket one time. And he goes, it was my first parking ticket. He goes, and I freaked out. He was like, in his 20s. Yeah. And then he's like, so what do? I pay the $25, and then what? He's like, well, that's it. That's it? Like that. So I got a park, because my father got a parking ticket. Oh my God! For the next week, you wouldn't be able to talk to him. So that's my dad.
Because he would be so mad that he got the ticket, or mad at himself that he got it. Mad at himself?
He'd be mad at the whole thing. He's very he's very frugal. He's loosened up as he's gotten old, but like we grew up, you only put the air conditioner on if it was like 95 or above, right? And it's like how much we found out one day. We're like, what do you think it costs you in electricity to run the air conditioner for a day? And he's like, I don't know, $5. $5, Dad. Here's $5. Turn that thing on.
Does he still go through, like, if he still gets a newspaper? Does he still go through like the the ads to find coupons, like for the grocery store and things like that?
That was my mother. I like that you said coupon, not coupon, too, by the way. We were coupon people. Yeah. And, no, that was my mother. But she had a whole book, and she had them organized front to back, dairy, so vegetables, all this stuff. Cereals.
My father-in-law will go to, like, 4 different grocery stores to shop so he can find the best.
Find the best price. That's awesome. I love it.
But it's so old school, and you're like, hey, you can just go to one spot and you're good. He's like, no, I'm going to find the best deals. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, so I went to go buy. My wife is gluten free, so she buys the gluten free oats, which is like, the oats are gluten free. Well, these are certified, not cross contamination, no wheat blew across your oats or whatever, right? It's just ridiculous. Yeah. The gluten-free oats were $10 a bag. The non-gluten-free oats, organic, $5 for a bigger container. I bought the $5. Don't you know the next day my wife goes to the supermarket, comes back with the gluten-free oats. So now we're like overflowing with oats. Yeah. And I'm like, these are gluten-free too. They're both gluten-free. You spent double for no reason. Like, that's where I step in. I'm not too crazy, but like, if it doesn't make sense, what are we doing here?
How does that gluten-free diet interfere with you? Is that problematic?
A little bit. Not terrible. Yeah. But she's just, here's what makes it problematic.
The kids, right?
When you eat gluten, no, you're more full, right? So we'll eat breakfast at, let's say it's a weekend, right? We had a late, 9 o'clock, okay? By 11:30, she wants to have lunch. And I'm like, I'm full. What are we gonna do? Well, when you don't eat gluten, you don't get full. Well, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem.
Don't bring us into your mess. All right.
Yeah.
You, man.
Well, I'm hungry. Well, find more ways to get some fiber in your diet other than wheat.
Hey, we'll get to football in a second, but speaking of hunger, are you still fasting or are you done fasting?
No, that was a
Still doing it?
one-day thing for my blood work, which came back great,
Oh.
by the way. Thanks for
Oh,
asking.
there you go. Congratulations on it. Did we mention it on the NFL Insiders? Did we have a report? You should have had like Pelissero, like rap sheet, like break in with some breaking news that your blood work was good.
They weren't working that week. I was getting blood work done and hosting the show. So they're working this week. I'm off this week. Although for you, I'm always on, buddy.
You can always take it off. Well, we'll redo it next week because we got 4th of July next week there as well.
All right.
Let's get some NFL stuff. Because, God, we're a month away from camp, right? Almost less than a month. Some teams on July 17th.
Oh, well, the Ravens are always the first team to bring in their rookies. So the Ravens start on July 13th with their rookies, which is crazy because then they start.
Why do they?
You can bring.
This?
You could because it's hardball. I asked somebody like, why does your organization hate summer and families and holidays too? Because it's not their fault, but I was rubbing it in. I'm like, why do you guys hate holidays? Because they're always playing on holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, back-to-back years they play on Christmas, I believe this year again. And they were like, well, Harbaugh. Okay, I know. I know.
So
Harbaugh. So he wants to
hates
bring him in
his
as early as
family.
possible.
So Harbaugh hates his family.
Who knows, man? Who knows? I'm sure he does. I think his kids are older, maybe. So once your kids are older, you don't care. I don't know. But they always bring in. A lot of teams just bring everybody in the same day, but the Ravens want to bring their rookies in, or you could do that a week before training camp, so they do that.
What type of year? Just that didn't even have this written down, but now that you just brought up the Ravens, and I just always think about. I love Lamar Jackson. I mean, I loved him since college. And then I loved, when all the talk was, well, who was it? Bill Polian? Oh, he should play wide receiver. I'm like, my God, come on, man. Let the guy play quarterback. Let's see what he can do. And he's not like every other quarterback in the league, and he's not this pure drop back passer. I think that's great. I don't want them all to look the same or play the same. He's got a unique, great skill set. But the playoff failures for him, right? And it's not just all on him, right, Mike? It's on the whole organization, and they have been wildly successful since he's come into the league. But at what point do they need to take that next step though with him, right? Or does he just going to continue to get branded as this quarterback that just can't win in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think about that with them because it's like, well, that style of play doesn't win the play. Well, they were one game away front. Like, it's just if they beat the Chiefs, right? That's a different story now. And you had that fumble near the goal line. So do you sit there and go, well, they can't get over the hump because of their style of play, or is it just, you get into the playoffs and things can happen, and it's hard to win playoff games, and you got the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes in your conference, right? If you were in the other conference, maybe you would have made it. So do you have to revamp? And then the other night I'm going to jump sports here, but sure. I'm watching the playoffs or the Stanley Cup Finals, and they're talking about how Florida felt like they needed to kind of rebuild the way that they played because they needed to do that to get over the hump, even though they were right there as well. So there's something to be said, I think, a little bit for both. But I just feel like this team is going to be who it's going to be, at least offensively, right? As long as he's there, right? You can change it by adding the element of Derrick Henry, and all of a sudden now you've got a little bit more of a physical type deal. And if you want to play a more, lower scoring, physical, closely contested game, now you've got another element at play, even though you had running backs that were, physical and can run between the tackles before. This is a little bit of a different element. So I think that's probably what that was about. I mean, I know what that was about, but I think that's probably the element that gets added where you go, okay, they've got a little bit more there. So, that's my thought on them. I don't think you change drastically. You just kind of try to play your best game in the playoffs, right? I know it sounds kind of silly and obvious, but that's what it is.
Yeah, but, it's like, I know you guys don't root for, you're not rooting for individual teams or players. I think a lot of people root for storylines, and I tend to root for guys that like the masses come down on and say they can't do something, they can't win this, they can't win that. I start to pull for him a little bit. So this narrative for him that he can't win in the playoffs, that he can't see, we told you he's an okay quarterback, but you can't play that style in the NFL. Like, I find myself rooting for him to get there, to knock off the Chiefs and get a Super Bowl so he can take that label off his back, because I mean, of guys that I've watched play that position, over the last, 10 plus years, I mean, he's so damn exciting. And,
Yeah.
he seems like a good guy. I mean, I don't know, you probably know him or know people that know him, and he just seems like a good guy. And I don't know, I find myself rooting for them or rooting for him specifically.
Yeah. And he's shown that he can, make some throws down the field. And when things break down, he can make those throws. I mean, I still hear from defensive coordinators who say, you defend the middle of the field, you try to make them throw vertical and up the sidelines, which has been the talk about him pretty much since he was coming out. It's like if he can throw and attack you straight ahead. If you try to make him do this or even down low in the flats, now all of a sudden you're taking him more out of his game. He's shown he can make those throws, and they've brought in receivers that they feel like can add that skill set that can open up those parts of the field to him. So there's still a little bit of an element of that, but he's clearly more of a passer than the likes of, you talked about Polian and everybody else, clearly more of a passer than those guys. I remember when he was in college, Dez Bryant was at the Cowboys at the time. I was in the locker room on a Saturday. I think it was a Saturday. And he was talking about Lamar, and he's like, he's the best college football player ever. The best college football player ever. And there was a whole argument going on with him and some of the reporters, and they were kind of playful back and forth. But I remember him at the time saying he's got everything you need to succeed in the NFL, and he was right.
He was just, I remember seeing him for the first time, and I think the immediate reaction from a lot of people was kind of the second coming of Michael Vick, just a right-handed version of Michael Vick. Just off the top of your head, not prepping you with any of this stuff, what is there a team or a small group of teams that you think this year, as we are, less than a month away from camp opening up, that have the most to prove this year?
That have the most to prove this year. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
How about
that? I'd say probably the Buffalo Bills. The two teams that come to mind are Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys. And Buffalo needing to prove, because of the decision to move on from Stephon Diggs, that was a smart decision for them, and they can survive with a lot of these guys who, either were never top flight guys elsewhere, or guys that were maybe second flight guys that were supposed to be top. Curtis Samuels, KJ Hamler, a guy who, in Denver had some health issues and otherwise. Mac Hollins, who's always been a good little guy that's not little guy, but a guy that's not afraid to get into the muck and do some of the dirty work as a wide receiver. So I think it's Buffalo, number one. And also, that's the other team that Josh Allen, can he ever... It's the easiest thing. Can he ever win the big one? It's like that's kind of what you say. So Buffalo's got a lot to prove. And then Dallas, because everybody, including people in the league, are like, what are they doing? They're not doing enough. They're not doing anything. They're sitting idly by. And Dallas has always had their plan, and they've kind of stuck to it, and they trust their ability to draft and get those guys to, contribute right away when needed, and early in their careers. So, you look at what they have done or not done this offseason, their inability to get anywhere with Dak Prescott on an extension. CeeDee Lamb probably gets done. Micah Parsons is the interesting one. Lord knows where that one's going to wind up in the long run or the short run, to be honest with you. So Dallas has got a lot to prove, certainly in the NFC, and Buffalo in the AFC. So there you go. There's your Super Bowl. Dallas against Buffalo. How about that?
Well, it was a hell of a Super Bowl back in the day. Parsons do anything in the offseason with these guys at all?
Very little. Very little. I mean, he was there for minicamp. So, okay. Yeah, he did very little, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. There's a little, that one is like, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know where it's going to wind up, to be honest with
you. There was, I think, a story this week, that Mike McCarthy's had it with Jerry Jones already. It just feels like, because of the pressure being the coach there, what you just mentioned with Prescott, I don't know. It feels like this is going to be Mike McCarthy's last year, and again, Jerry Jones, Mike is turning to find another head coach. Do you kind of get that feeling as we enter the 24 season?
I don't know. I mean, I like Mike McCarthy a lot. I think he's a good coach. I think if he gets fired, there should be teams jumping at the chance to hire him. Now, it'd be a third stop. A lot of times you say, usually see that success in three places for a coach. But I think his approach, I think the way he doesn't stay stagnant, right? He tries to reinvent himself, and he tries different approaches with the players, and he changes things every year to try to keep it fresh for these guys. And I think he's smart. He's a good offensive mind, certainly. He's got the ability to, is he tired of Jerry Jones? I'd imagine every coach that's ever coached for Jerry Jones is tired of Jerry Jones, right? You get to that point for sure, but he may have been tired of Jerry Jones in his first year too. It's just
Probably.
Now that he's hanging by a thread, you can kind of hit that storyline. I don't know. I mean, I sit there and say, well, I am a skeptic. I'm a bit of a skeptic. They have a lot to prove to me, the Cowboys do this year. So, I just can't put them in that elite category right now. So if they're not in that elite category where they're in the NFC Championship, or if they have another disappointment, then I think it's probably going to be McCarthy's last year. I do believe that. I don't think that would be the smartest move, but.
Yeah. Are you one of these sports fans or someone who covers sports, you cover the NFL, that likes it when whatever league it is, like the premier franchises are the best, that are at the top of their game, right? So for baseball, the Yankees are relevant. The Dodgers are relevant.
Mm-hmm.
For football, it would be, it'd be the Cowboys, probably the Packers, and, I don't know who else I'm missing on that one that would stand out to you. NBA would be the Lakers, the Knicks, and things like that. Do you like it when it's like that? Or do you like the parity and the teams that are, the Cincinnati Bengals or the, whatever, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of those leagues?
Yeah, I do. Sometimes I get, because like hockey, I want people to care about hockey because I love hockey, right? So when you get some of these small market teams that make the Stanley Cup Finals sometimes I think to myself, what if we had a Columbus-Winnipeg Stanley Cup Final, right? Because anytime you put franchises where they're putting them, you give yourself the chance that could be the final, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, if that happened, how depressing would that be? Because nobody would watch, and I don't want that to happen. So I find myself rooting for it in that regard. However, in the NFL, I think that stuff really transcends because of the popularity of the NFL and because individual stardom. And listen, one of the teams you mentioned, the Green Bay Packers, it doesn't get smaller than that, but yet they're one of the premier. So it's not necessarily the size of the market, really. A lot of times it has to do with, I would love to see the Lions, Browns, Jets. I'd love to see these teams get to the Super Bowl at some point, right?
Yeah, but like the Lions, I mean, at least with the Lions, I mean, there's a history there, right? I mean, going back to the, long time ago. I mean, there's a history of losing. I'm with you on the Browns. I would love to see because of what that franchise has gone through. I'd love to see the Browns winning. I think they just have a great fan base. All right, Kansas City. They enter this year. They're trying to become the first NFL team to ever three-peat. No one's ever done it before. If they pull it off, and that would be 3 in a row, 4 of the last 6, where does the conversation go with Mahomes and Andy Reid and just the whole organization?
Yeah, I think Andy did an extension, seeming to indicate that he wants to do this for a long time. I don't know. He's such a private guy. You'll never get it, but there was definitely some fire to that smoke a couple of years ago of him potentially considering retirement if they won, and then he kind of poo-pooed and said, no, he never really said, how close he was or yes, it was considering it and why he changed his mind and went from, potentially riding off into the sunset to signing an extension after winning these last 2. So you'll never get the real answer there from him. So I don't know, but it seems like he's locked in to kind of be there for the foreseeable future. So I think you may, if you get a three-peat, depending on how the season goes, we'll see. I'm sure a guy like that wants to go out on a high note. I'm sure a guy like that would love to win Coach of the Year, by the way. He's only won Coach of the Year once, I believe. It was 2002 or 2001 or something like that, which is just insane. Think of the people that have won Coach of the Year in between. Mike Vrabel won Coach of the Year a couple of years ago. Brian Daboll won it 2 years ago, and it's like, okay, in the moment, those guys deserved it, and you're always looking for who got their team further than they expected. The problem with Andy Reid is he set the bar, because it's a regular season award. So he set the bar so high for what to expect from an Andy Reid team in the season that he just kind of hits it every year. Now, Belichick won a couple along the way, 2 or 3, I want to say. But Andy Reid, I believe, has only won that one back in his early time with the Eagles. Again, because it was like, here's a team on the rise. He's got them coming up. Okay, well, at some point we got to go, hey, maybe we'll just give it to Andy this year because they're an 11-12 win team again.
I think it's if they were to pull it off, and then now because you're going to start getting the discussion, is Mahomes the greatest quarterback of all time? And I think what would be fascinating about it would be, because we're obsessed with that, right? We're obsessed with the LeBron versus Jordan and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it because it's old school sports bar talk, because that's what you talk around when you're around the bar or in the barbershop. Yeah. These are the things that you rap about. But I think what would make this one unique, if they pull it off, and he's got 4 in the last 6 years, is that it happens so quickly from the last guy. Because normally we don't get that. I mean, there was a gap between like LeBron and Jordan. I mean, not a huge gap, but there was a gap. And when you have those discussions, there's always this gap, a big gap between those stars. This one's not. I mean, they played each other in the Super Bowl. And I don't know. It's fascinating. And you no doubt I guess that motivates Mahomes. He's chasing Brady.
And he'll always have the loss to Brady in the AFC Championship game as well, right? And that's probably what amazes me from these guys that win multiple titles all the time is, like, how do you keep that edge? How do you keep pushing it? And how do you – and I believe the likes of Tom Brady when they say, well, I got 7 rings, but I'll never get over losing to the Giants, right? Or I'll never get over losing to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. It's like, dude, you got 7 rings. Like, I'm a laid-back sports fan sometimes, right? Like, I'm dying. The Flyers have never won the Cup in my lifetime. I'm dying to see the Flyers win it. You think if the Flyers win the Cup in 2025, next year, right? You think in 26 I'm going to care? Hey, we're good for like 10 years, okay? You finally won the Cup. How do these guys go back? Oh, we're going to get that. The Giants won it in 07. I covered that team. And then in 08, Plaxico shot himself. And, the season that they thought they were going to win back-to-back. Yeah. And the fans to this day, you just won it the year before. You really that upset? Well, we were going to win it again. Okay, well, you won it the year before. That's still fresh in your mind. It is. I'm not that way, so I am impressed by people who are that way.
They are. They're just. But that's what makes them so unique. They are just wired. That competitive. Mm-hmm. That addiction to winning. Because that's what it is. It's an addiction to winning. Yeah. And they. I don't know. It's a different beat, a different breed. They are like the 1%ers, and they can't stand losing. They can't stand it.
Yeah.
In a motive. That's what makes them great. That's what I mean, we're not great. Yeah. That's why we're sitting here doing this and not doing something.
I would say that you probably have to be that way, like wanting all of them to win one, right? Like, I would think everybody on that level is kind of that way. So,
all right, go pour yourself a drink. Have fun at the charity event. Yeah. Is Travis going to be there with Taylor? Do we know?
I don't think so. No, Taylor definitely not. She's on tour, but I don't believe. I didn't ask. I didn't want to be that guy.
Can you imagine if she does pull up and she walks up to you and goes, "I'd like a hold." I'm just the pretend. She goes, "I'd like a Cosmopolitan." Or no. What if she goes, "Hey, I'd like a Gibson." What would you do? Gibson.
What are you doing later?
All right,
match made in heaven right there.
The episode is in the books. If you're listening, go back and watch it, because it's the first ever edition of the show with a car seat appearance, I believe. So. Shout out! I know. I think
I've just framed it better before.
Perfect.
So, whatever.
You're the best. Enjoy yourself, and we'll figure out a schedule next week with 4th of July. So we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. All right, brother. Thanks, man.